Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of Inspire to Invest has been brought to you by the Canadian Real Estate Women Association, also known as CREWA. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Ray Vozza and Joe Barrington, I should say, here with us today. We always want to extend things on my end, but they're both full-time real estate investors. They run an amazing company called BV&Co. They kicked off this chapter of their careers back in 2019 and have grown their portfolio to more than 100 doors during that time. They specialize in conversions, multifamily development, and short-term rentals. And they really love to help others benefit through real estate by joint venturing with them, private lending, and also offering equity investments. So thank you so much for being here today. I know you're both very busy.
Thanks for having us, Serena.
Thanks for having us, Serena. It is a pleasure. We're super excited and honored to be your guests.
Yeah, of course. So I know that you guys haven't been investing for overly long. It's been about 4 years. So what I really want to know is what you guys were doing before real estate investing came into the picture.
Go ahead, hon.
Okay, well, I was, we've got sort of interesting backgrounds, I guess, compared to where we are now. But my degree was actually in zoology. I spent my whole career in the fundraising world in the not-for-profit space and did corporate fundraising there. So I loved it. It was a fabulous career.
I didn't know the zoology part.
Yeah, that's weird, right?
Joe always has interesting twists and turns when she's telling stories. For me, my background was marketing. So sponsorships, events, doing experiential, that was almost 15 years. Yeah. And it was great. But at the same time, we kind of realized that we wanted a little bit more. So making a shift was something that was in the cards for us.
Yeah.
So what did that shift look like? So you guys were both working. Did one of you exit your careers first? Or like, how did that jump actually take place?
So I think for us, it was really all around the time when we had our first child. So we were living in Toronto, right? We had our first child, our daughter, and all of a sudden our cost of living just like doubled, like childcare, diapers, everything. Like
childcare was more than a mortgage.
We ran the numbers and I'm like, we're paying more for childcare than we are paying for a mortgage every single month. And it became clear at that point in time that we needed to be able to develop some additional streams of revenue, right? Some other sources of income. But it wasn't a really big goal of like, we're going to make a huge, big shift, right? It was like, we're going to do one or two kind of, either buy a property or do an investment and be able to kind of augment what was going on in the household. But I'd say mid 2019, right? We really kind of, we saw the potential and we saw the opportunity and we said, you know what, if we go at this full time, we can really go ahead and kind of change our trajectory.
Yeah. So then what happened next? Did you guys go about going into multifamily or like, how did that growth path look and like to take you to where you are now today with 100 doors?
Yeah, you tell the story. I tell a longer story. You're good at keeping it concise.
Yeah, so I mean, I was doing a lot of networking in 2019, kind of the back half, and I just wasn't getting the traction that I really needed. So we decided to, invest in ourselves with a little more education, and that's where we really started to get traction. So the start of 2020. If everyone remembers, that was the start of the COVID period and we caught fire. So as the world was shutting down, we were acquiring. So we did our first joint venture just to like kick off the new year in January. Yeah. The next month of February, we did our first multifamily, 16 units. And that was like just jumping right into kind of the deep end, right? So we had a duplex and then all of a sudden we went like right into like multifamily. Yeah. And then over the period of the next 8 months or 10 months, I think we added 5 more properties to the portfolio during that period of time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a smart move because I think just from talking to all the investors, like so many have just said they wish they went bigger sooner because the work that goes into acquiring like a smaller property is the same as if it was 10 doors or 20 doors or whatever that may be. And it doesn't mean that, there aren't some complexities that come with that when it comes to structuring your legal contracts and capital raising and stuff like that. But as a whole, there are also some other things that just make sense from an economies of scale perspective.
100% agree, right? And for us, right, because we decided to really go at this on a full-time basis. So, now I've left my career, I've decided to go at this, right? For us being able to make those acquisitions and be able to get our portfolio up to a level was a large goal and we really went after it.
Yeah, I don't think we could have grown as quickly as we did if Ray hadn't been in it full-time. Yeah. So I stayed in the career. I joined him full-time in 2021, so it's been 2 years now. Yeah. But it was, we couldn't have done that by doing it part-time, right? And having two small kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think even looking back now, I'm like, oh, this would have been so much easier if I did this in my 20s and my 30s. Like, I still had a busy business, but it's very different when kids come into the picture and you've got to balance things a lot differently, right? So I give you guys credit. It had to be done. Like, you do what you got to do, right? But
thank you. Well,
that comes with
the balance, right? Of working for yourself as well as having kids, right? To be able to raise. So it's a challenge, but it's a great challenge, and it's a rewarding life. That's for sure.
Yeah. No. Now, when you look at your portfolio and the way that it's grown and stuff like that, is there any one particular project or acquisition or whatever it is that you would say you're most proud of, or you feel like is your biggest success so far?
It's funny. I don't think I can pick a project that I can say is the thing that we're most proud of. I'm honestly most proud of the growth that we've done as a couple, as a business, as a family, because it has taken, and I don't think I anticipated that going into this journey. I think I wasn't at all aware of sort of the mental capacity and the mental growth that comes with being an entrepreneur, and the ups and the downs, and the pressure is on a whole new level because the buck stops with you, right? And it's it hasn't not been easy, but we've done great, and I think that's the thing I'm most proud of, for sure.
And I think it's not easy. Like I mean, I was talking to Diana and John earlier, for example, and when you are working as a real estate entrepreneur and investor, that's hard on its own, let alone bringing that into your marriage. And I think just compartmentalizing certain things, and you don't want to necessarily be sitting there talking about at the breakfast table about everything. So you got to try to have some boundaries. Like, I think just having those close proximity to everything can just be like a whole nother layer to having your marriage mixed in, right?
100%.
100%, right? But like, we can talk about like different projects and the things that we've fallen in love. And I think on every particular property and project, there's like, that kind of that honeymoon romance period where you're like, maybe it was the tile that showed, so the way the layout came together, or the way the refinance kind of happened, right? Like there's ones that were just like, oh, you know what, we love the fact that we hit that home. But overall, we really, our mindset still stays the same, which is it's learning and growing, right? So everyone has taught us something. Everyone has benefited us in some ways. And, for us, it's hard to be able to say like, this is the one, right? When there's like everyone you pick up a new skill set, something has happened. You've gotten a little bit smarter, faster, or better.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
And I think the other thing too that sticks out to me in terms of something that we're proud of is being able to offer opportunities for others to get involved in real estate who are not currently involved. I mean, we've had a couple of people reach out to us and say, they were able to go on this family trip that they've always wanted to go on because they invested with us. And that feels really, really nice.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. And obviously, like to your point, there are challenges with any project or acquisition. Are there any particular challenges or obstacles that you've faced that you would want to highlight? And anything now looking back, coming through it on the other end that maybe you would have done differently with the knowledge and experience that you have now?
I think, I mean, we were talking about this last night, actually. We were like prepping for today, going through the questions and really giving some great thought to that particular question. And I think as investors that were aggressively scaling our portfolio, right? One of the things that we've really learned from is taking on a project in a market that is changing and shifting. And it really becomes about those additional exit strategies that you thought about at the beginning, but now it's time to deploy them. So, you bought a property, you're working on it, the interest rates have gone up, and now the mortgage is 2 times what you thought you'd be paying at the start. What do you do, right? How do you be able to continue to be successful? How do you pivot? How do you make those changes? And I think for us, that was probably the biggest really lesson, or the biggest learning, right? That came out of last year, right? It's 8 interest rates, as we all know. Everything went up for all of us, right? So costs went up, and it's like, how do you be profitable, be successful, and continue to move things forward?
And I would say also, yes, we happen to build and grow and scale a business during a global pandemic, which is pretty crazy. But I think that regular communication with your partners, with your investors, with everybody and being really transparent and, calling a spade. Everyone was in the same position in terms of the rates, and being open and honest about how we were going to navigate our way through this. And we were going to try this strategy, see if that worked, and then try this strategy. And I think that communication and that transparency was something that I think has really helped us over the last few years, for sure.
Yeah, no, and I can understand, because as you guys know, I've been on the more passive side for the last few years. And I think just with some of the people that I've invested with now, it's like that makes a huge difference. Like, I think if there is anything going on and there's any possible chance of like a delay or whatever it may be, I think as the active partners, like, you have to be very transparent and very proactive with your communication, just so that you can put your investors' minds at ease, let them know how you're handling something. Because at the end of the day, like, your reputation is like, couldn't be more important in this kind of an industry. Now, when you look back, would you say that there's anything that's really surprised you over the course of being a real estate investor in a way that, like, when you started out, you never would have thought you'd be encountering something or experiencing something?
I mean, yeah, there's been a ton of surprises over the last few years, but honestly, I think for me, it's been the personal growth as an entrepreneur. And I think one of the things that has helped us tremendously in that has been surrounding ourselves with like-minded people. So in different groups and masterminds and communities, we're part of similar ones. And, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate that sort of mental and personal journey that we'd be going on, as well as building a business.
Yeah. Do you think there's anything that stands out to you as probably like the biggest lesson that you've learned, like for anyone that's watching that maybe hasn't gone down this path yet? Any like pearl of wisdom that you'd pass along to them that you wish someone could have helped you with earlier on?
Well, I think we did help ourselves, but I think probably the biggest pearl of wisdom we can pass on for anyone that is considering or starting out, which is to be able to surround yourself in a community that is going to be able to give you the support, the education, and the resources necessary to be able to take those first steps. It can be daunting, it can be overwhelming, but being able to really, look after kind of your own education is a huge factor. And that was one of the things that we did that really helped us, right? We spent the time on education, mentorship, getting ourselves in the communities and really being able to understand what we're up to before we jumped into it.
Because when you start, you don't, when you start on a journey, especially when you're working the 9 to 5 and you're in the grind and you have this kind of vision of what real estate could do for you. And so you want to sort of dip your feet in a little bit, but you hear all the things in the news about, the market, and maybe it's not a good idea. So when we started, we didn't talk to anybody about what we were doing, because we kept it just between us for almost a full year, and so the only people we had to talk about it were the people that were in those communities with us. And that built really strong friendships and really strong relationships. And we have just learned a ton from everybody there. And that has kind of seen us through a little bit, because I think sometimes when you're not in the space, you can get a little bit overwhelmed by fear.
I can see that. I mean, obviously the media really sensationalizes things. And at the end of the day, whether you're an entrepreneur in another type of business or an investor, like, it can be very isolating. So I think it's nice to know that you've got resources and people that you can talk to. I mean, even for myself, like, my husband's not really involved with it. So I can't go to him asking certain questions because he's not going to really know, or he cannot maybe relate to certain things. So it's nice to know you can go back out to other people you've developed those relationships with, just to have the support or get where you want to go fast or answer a question.
100%.
Totally.
So on that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Great.
The Canadian Real Estate Women Association, also known as CREWA, is a national not-for-profit association of female professionals working and investing in Canadian real estate. They believe that women have no limits in the real estate world. They're looking to connect with leaders in the industry who will share the strategies that they use in real estate, along with exclusive details of their life experience, which are important for consistent personal and professional growth and happiness. To learn more, go to crua.ca. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur, in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Ray Vozza and Joanne Barrington here with me today from BV&Co, and they're talking about how they started investing in real estate about 4 years back, and they've grown their portfolio with their joint venture partners and other resources to over 100 doors. So bringing everything back, I guess one question that I have is, what's the craziest thing that you've encountered as a real estate investor so far?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I'm not gonna make it a
where
sad
do
podcast.
I start?
Yeah, I know. There has been some crazy ones, right? There's been some totally crazy ones. But I do remember one time it was our first multifamily, and we were up there, and there was a little bit of a dispute about some ownership of property, right? There were some things out front that we had said, hey, we got to clear out of here, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, right, a couple of phone calls are made, and I've got the OPP there, and like I'm over the cruiser, and like he's got the handcuffs out, and I'm like, hold on a second, like, we're actually part of the solution right here. So probably the craziest was like telling Joe that I nearly got arrested when I was working on the property. That was probably one of the craziest.
Yeah, no. And for you, Joe, is there anything that jumps out?
I would say receiving that picture of him over getting arrested. I was like, what is happening? No, we've had some pretty crazy stories in terms of fires, floods, like you name everything you can think of. We've kind of gone through it. So
yeah. You came out on the other side and you're still smiling. So I think that's
right.
Thing. So I know you talked a lot about educating yourself and surrounding yourself with mentorship. What's some of the best advice you've received?
I think some of the best advice that we've received is really to be able to go ahead and spend the time to define your goals. Everyone has got different objectives out there, and it is okay to like make them as grand or as simple as you want them to be. But without understanding what you're trying to achieve, and you're like, great, I want to go out and do this, but then it's like what is it that you want to get out of it, and why is it that you're doing it? If you don't have those two components really figured out, you're going to keep on doing this thing, but never really getting to where you want to go. So being able to sit down and truly define what it is you want. If it's money, do you want X amount coming in? If it is control of your time, if it is control of your finances, if it is running a business, if it is being totally passive, you really have to really search within yourself to be able to say, what is it you want? Because it's ultimately architecting your life by design, right? You get to choose your path by the work that you're about to put in. So you don't want to do all this work and find yourself down this other path and be kind of looking over at the other pasture going, geez, I thought I'd be over there, and here I am, kind of thing. So I think that's probably like a really big thing that started off for us, which was finding those goals and then refining them as we go. Keep looking at them, and making sure we're on the right path.
Well, that's the thing. You're constantly refining your goals, and through your experiences, you realize, oh, maybe that's not actually, it's not really feeling like that's for me. Maybe I'm going to do a little bit of this. But I think one of the main things is when you're doing that exercise of trying to define your goals, really be honest with yourself and don't set goals based on what you think you should want. And I think that's really hard, because I think in this day and age, a lot of the times we think, especially when you're going into entrepreneurship, there's a lot of, like go, and, acquire and, be awesome and get all these doors and all of this stuff. And that, if you don't want that, that's okay. If you just want to do one property here, and get a little portfolio of 5 doors, like that's fine too. And sometimes I think it's very easy to get caught up in that. So really being honest with yourself
Yeah,
about
and I think
not
with social media, it can feel really competitive, right? I mean, people put that in their description, like how many doors they have or what the value of their portfolio is like, and it can feel really intimidating or competitive and things like that, right? But at the end of the day, we all have different seasons in our life, and if you've got two small kids, like, you know, it may not make sense to acquire maybe what you thought you would because you're giving up that time that you wanted to have with your family in the first place, right? So I think it's all about having that balance and figuring out what works best for your life.
And I think that's exactly where we are right now too, right? So, you know, we went all in, and we kind of got, we just
full tilt.
we went full tilt. I mean, it's kind of how we do most things, but we went full tilt. We, you know, it took this past, you know, year for us to really realize we work harder now than we ever did in the day jobs, you know, and yes, we've built a lifestyle where we're not going into the 9 to 5 and that kind of thing, which is amazing. And we're able to pick up our kids at the bus, which we love. But it is, you know, you have to take a moment and I think, as you say, every season, do some reflection and say, is this what I want? You know, and if not, what changes am I going to make to do that?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Now, obviously, you talked about just, you know, the amount of work that you're doing right now. So my question is just in regards to how real estate investing has changed your life, but maybe not so much how it is now, but like, how do you see it changing as you move forward? And, you know, you've got properties that are stabilizing and you're kind of, you know, maybe more slowly acquiring and stuff like that. Like, how do you see what real estate investing is going to do for you in the long term?
It's going to continue to, like, you know, ultimately it will be able to provide that generational wealth that we want to be able to have, right? That financial freedom for ourselves as well as the people around us, right? So that's friends, family, and community, right? We're big believers and we all win together. It's not just about, you know, us, you know, making it rich and then, you know, being on the beach, sipping the pina coladas. That's nice. But like that's not the big plan for it right there. You know, real estate will continue to be that machine that continues to work and just build over time, right? And that's what it is. It's designed to be a time-based, you know, investment vehicle where over years and years and years, it just continues to go ahead and provide you great quality returns. So for us, now that we've kind of built this great, you know, stabilized portfolio, now it's about really picking, you know, passion projects, things that we really want to be able to make impact and difference in doing, where we can see real benefits ethically, financially, and socially. So I think that's, you know, that's probably the best I can give you in terms of where we're going to keep on going.
Well, and control of our time, right?
Oh, no doubt about that.
Like control of our time. That's been the biggest gift it's given us, I'd say, is the freedom to work from home, the freedom to be there for our kids, take our kids to all the lessons, be there at the bus, do all those things that, you know, we weren't able to do before. And so I just think more of that.
It's the tiny little, again, intrinsic moments, right? It's being able to like take your kids and, you know, to that after school event and not have to worry about, you know, talking to the boss and getting time off early and then working later on and all that sort of stuff. Sure, you know, the boss still says yes most of the time, but you know, you still got to put the effort in. That's for sure.
Good one. Good one.
So that makes sense. Now, I guess in terms of financial freedom, is there anything that you guys determined maybe early on that was like your financial freedom number, whether that's cash flow coming in, the value of the portfolio, like kind of to feel like you've made it? Like,
well, thank you. Like that's always nice to hear, right? We feel like we're still, you know, on the ascent kind of thing. But I think for us, Serena, right, there were some good things kind of passed on in terms of some financial marks. And we were very green when we started, so it was all new to us. But the idea of being at the accredited level, right, of an investor, so having a certain amount of liquidity, having a certain amount of assets, and then having a certain net worth, right, is what we really kind of strive for. So we've been able to hit those marks, which is really, really great.
Now, for someone that's new and may not understand, like, what is the value of being accredited? Like, what do you have to have, or like what level of income?
So I guess in the layman's terms, right, it's as simple as you can invest in more, I don't want to say complicated projects, but you can make larger investments in projects, right? So if you wanted to be into a development project or that sort of thing, you're now going to have the financial, you know, acumen to be able to say, yes, I understand what I'm investing in and I can participate. Sometimes, right, the the person who's putting together the investment package or the developer, they may not let someone who's not accredited. So you might,
So for
have
someone who
funds.
doesn't know what that is, like what do you have to have in terms of income or assets to be considered accredited?
Oh, now you're gonna put me on the spot right here. So
you never know who's listening, right? Like that may be a term
Yeah.
that they've never heard of before.
I think the net worth is like 2.5 is the net worth is where it sits at. And then in terms of liquidity, I believe that I think it's 300 is liquidity on there. And then I believe your annual has to be in and around 300 as well. I'd have to go back and double check on those, right?
I was just curious to see, because like I said, whenever someone uses an acronym or a term that I think someone may not understand, if they're listening for the first time, then it's always helpful just to break it down for them.
Yes.
Now, I guess in terms of inspiration, obviously the name of the podcast is Inspired to Invest. So are there any particular quotes that really resonate with you?
Go ahead, Hon.
The one that I've always loved, which is not necessarily connected to real estate, but it's reach for the moon and the worst you can do is fall among the stars. I love that one. I love it because it does create that impetus and that drive to just, go for it. Life's too short to sit around and worry and wonder and like, oh, what if I did this, or how could real estate help me? Oh, but I'm a little nervous. Just go for it. Go for it with people that you trust. Try it out, and the worst you'll have is an experience, and you'll learn from it and you'll grow from it. And I think real estate is an incredible business and incredible industry that can help so many people in so many different ways, passively, actively, all sorts of things. So I guess that would be my advice, is just go for it.
I would say mine is live life by design and not by necessity. And that took me a long time to kind of wrap my head around, because I was like, well, I always need to do these things in order to be able to kind of live, right? To be able to make my days, make my weeks, make my months. And it's really the idea of, you have the opportunity to get up and design your life. And I know that might sound like, pedestrian kind of advice where it's like, oh, so easy because they've made it kind of thing and they can do whatever they want. That's not the case. We can all get up and choose how our days can be, choose habits, choose productivity, choose to live an inspired life, and hopefully inspire those around us. So we love your podcast name. Part of our goal is always to be able to inspire those around us to live their best lives. So try and do it by design, the things that you want to get the best out of life, right? And there it is.
Great. Now, for anyone that wants to get in touch with you to learn more about your opportunities, what's the best way for them to connect?
Awesome. Well, we can be reached in some simple ways. We're on social media, so you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, and you can also find us on LinkedIn. So it's BV&Co.ca. That's who we are. You can also go onto our website, which is www.bvco.ca. So pretty easy to be able to locate us. We're right out there.
Yeah, and we'll obviously include all your details in the show notes below. Is there anything in particular that you want to leave with anyone that could be watching or listening right now?
I think just if you're curious about real estate, if it's something you've been toying with or thinking about exploring, I would say connect with somebody that you know who's in the space, connect with somebody that you trust, and pick their brain. Everybody who's in the real estate space loves talking about real estate. So, it can never hurt to, as we said earlier, just educate yourself, get yourself informed. And when you're ready, take a step with somebody that you trust. And the opportunities are there. There are so many opportunities, and we always have opportunities. I know you always connect people. You always have your own opportunities. So there's tons of people out here who want to help. And just reach out.
Yeah, so I would echo Joe's thoughts there. If we can help you in your real estate journey, please reach out. We would love to have that conversation. But at the same time, I want to say thank you for Serena for hosting us, but also developing this amazing podcast. Your platform is blown up, right? And my number one piece of advice to leave people with, which is continue to listen and follow, because you're bringing unbelievable content and experts ready and available for people to be able to absorb and really take action on. So thanks for what you're doing. It's awesome.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thanks, of course, for being here. Now, for anyone that has tuned in, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. If you've liked what you've seen, you want to pay attention to some future episodes. You can also follow along at Inspired to Invest podcast on Instagram and on Facebook. And above all else, please make sure that you remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again.
Thank you again to the Canadian Real Estate Women Association for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest.
The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.